Alrighty, good morning. My name is Skip Adel. I work with the National Park Service Fire GIS program, and this is our fourth webinar in a series. Today we're going to go over how to make a quick map, and Sarah Cooper is going to be the one, or pardon me, Sarah Hartsberg, oh bad, is going to be the one presenting today, and I'm going to be managing the question and answer panels and things like that. So if anybody has any questions as we go along, please feel free to type them into the question panel, and I'll answer them if I can. Otherwise, we'll put them off till the end if they're a question for the general audience. And if you have any other issues or anything, raise your hand, send a chat, whatever, and we can deal with that. We are recording this webinar. We're going to post it somewhere so that more people can get access to it, the people who aren't able to attend. And otherwise, like I said, feel free to answer questions. And Sarah, like I mentioned, will be presenting. And Sarah, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay, thanks, Skip. Hi, everybody. As Skip said, my name is Sarah Hartsberg. I am working as a GIS tech as a contractor for the NPS Fire GIS program. I just started this job in October 2012. Before that, I worked for 13 years as a wildland firefighter on several different types of crews, but primarily on a wildland fire module. And as Skip said, today's topic of today's webinar is going to be creating a quick map. And to lead into that, I am first going to describe the NWCG GIS SOPs, or GSTOP for short, for incident mapping, including what they are and why we have them, and what aspects of incident mapping they apply to, so that you can see how you might use them as guidelines when making your maps. I'll also review the required elements for all fire maps, elements which will give you your map context and help ensure that your map communicates its intended message clearly. And then I'll demonstrate how to create a quick map using a map template. So GIS Standard Operating Procedures for Incidents. The GIS Standard Operating Procedure project GIS Standard Operating, sorry, that's kind of a mouthful. GSTOP for Incidents project was chartered in 2004 and coincided with the NWCG's formal acceptance and development of the GIS Specialist, or GISS, position, taskbook, and training. It was updated in 2012 to reflect changes in fire management policies and associated technology. The intent of GSTOP is to standardize GIS products and methods and improve service to decision makers during incidents. The SOPs primarily focus on work performed by the GISS on an incident. However, they are useful as guidelines for any fire personnel who will be making incident maps. You might ask why we need SOPs for GIS. Really, the answer is the same reason we have SOPs for many aspects of wildland fire. Most of you, or many of you, probably work on a crew that has SOPs for chainsaw maintenance or firing operations. And just like those SOPs are intended to make sure no critical aspect of a task is overlooked and that there's consistency in the results of the task, GIS SOPs are important for ensuring critical information is conveyed in fire maps and to promote consistency in maps, which allows users to quickly and efficiently understand critical information that's being communicated. SOPs include expectations for a GISS on an incident, specifically with regard to the knowledge and abilities required of a person in that position, the procedures that the GISS is expected to follow, and equipment needed for a GISS to function at a basic level. The SOPs also cover file naming and directory structure, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the next slide. Documentation and metadata, specifically with regard to the responsibilities and procedures for daily incident documentation. They also cover minimum essential data sets required for map products, map symbology, map products themselves, data sharing, backup and archiving, and team transition, ensuring that all related info, data, and products are transferred successfully during a team transition. So looking at these a little bit closer and show you how they can be a guidance for you as you're creating QuickMap, even if you're not a GISS. The SOPs for file naming and directory structure. The intent of these SOPs is to have a standardized file naming and directory structure to promote an efficient method of work and provide a consistent and repeatable structure while allowing some scalability in the process. And for those of you who are curious or would like more information on the file naming and directory structure, I did talk about this a little bit in yesterday's webinar, and there is a sample of this directory in the webinar materials for yesterday's webinar, so, as well as in the documentation for the Geospatial Standard Operating Procedures for Incident Response, the document that is also on the webinar materials. The next aspect that the SOPs cover are minimum essential data sets, and these describe the base data needed for any type of map project or several types of map products that you would need to meet map and analysis needs on an incident. So you can see in the chart here on the right, columns contain the types of map products that you might be interested in making. And then the rows are the different map layers that you might want to include. Anything with an O is an optional layer that you might want to add to your map, and anything with an R indicates a required layer to include in your map. So for example, for the IAP map, the first one here, it looks like the only required layer is a topographic base layer, and then there are several optional layers as well. So you can see how that might be a useful tool as you're creating your own maps. Map symbology. The SOPs for map symbology are intended to provide consistent symbology, which will allow firefighters to quickly and easily understand the information that's being presented on the map. It's a good idea to stick to this symbology whenever possible. This is what most firefighters and incident personnel are used to seeing on incident maps. And again, it does allow you to quickly and easily understand the information that's being conveyed. Try to avoid any temptation to make your maps look pretty by deviating from the standard symbols. This requires extra time from people looking at the map to interpret, and could possibly lead to confusion as they're trying to interpret the map's meaning. There's standard symbology for points, lines, and polygons. You can see here, the image on the right is an example of the standard symbology for points on incidents. You're also going to want to make sure there's guidance for using symbology in your maps. One of the things that the SOPs point out is to make sure that your symbols will be clear and easily interpreted if they're printed in color or in black and white. Let me get rid of this. And you also want to be sure to label points that have identical symbols. Points like health spots and drop points, which use the same symbol when they're printed in black and white, that you won't be able to differentiate between the two. Next area the SOPs cover are map products. For each type of incident map product, GSTOP provides a description of the map, who the target audience is for that map product, general guidelines for creating the map, things like special considerations things you would want to take into consideration when you're depending on the type of the map. For example, if you're making an IAP map, think about what the map would look like if it was ultimately printed in black and white. Or if it's a briefing map, it'll remind you to think about things like the font and symbol sizes, and if they're large enough to see from the back of a briefing area. GSTOP also provides a list of required cartographic elements for each type of map product, and a list of the data layers that should be shown on the map. The SOPs cover required elements for all fire maps. All fire maps should include a scale bar, which indicates how map distance relates to distance on the ground. A title that includes the incident name, the map type, and possibly the shift the map was created for. The author's name should also be included on every map, which can be the person or a group that prepared the map. A north arrow should be included on every map, and this is used by field personnel to align the map properly. The date that the map is prepared should also be included, and a legend, which will provide a key to the symbols that are used in the map. There are a few optional map elements that you'll see if you look at the Geospatial Standard Operating Procedures. And these include the source statement, which is basically the date and time that the key elements on the map were collected. So the date and time the fire perimeter was collected. And then a graticule or a grid, which allows the map to be referenced to a specific area on Earth. It's commonly shown in latitude and longitude, or UTMs. And a datum, which would be the horizontal datum that the data being used is in. And you must include a datum on the map if the grid or a graticule is used, so that the map can be aligned with GPS positions. Okay. And so that's really it for the PowerPoint. I'm going to start the demo now. And as we go into beginning to create our map, we do need to be thinking about a few things. And those are the type of map product that we're going to be making. And what I'm going to do today is create an IAP map. We need to identify the purpose of the map and the intended audience. And for an IAP map, the audience would be all operational personnel, and the map's going to be included in the IAP tomorrow, theoretically. We want to think about remember the required elements. So we'll use the GSTAP for guidance on layers specific to this map product. I actually have this image here, and again, we just talked about this. So the IAP, the only required layer is the topographic base map. And then we'll also need to remember to include required elements for all incident maps, which is the scale, title, author, north arrow, date, and legend. One other thing I wanted to point out before I start the demo is that during the demo, I'm going to be referring to the template incident folder SOM, or template project folder. I sometimes use those terms interchangeably. All the tools I'm going to be using today are in the template incident folder. And those of you who attended yesterday's webinar will know what I mean when I say that. But for those of you who weren't able to make yesterday's webinar, I'll just explain real quickly what that is. The template incident folder is exactly what it might sound like. It's a template that you can copy and rename for use and use on each incident that you're on. The specific template incident folder that we used yesterday is available in the webinar materials. Or this is a specific. This is a specific incident folder that we used yesterday, and it is available in the webinar materials, and it's been pre-assembled or configured to match the file naming and directory structure that's used by GISSs, and it follows the GSTOP guidelines. In addition to the template file structure, it also contains several tools you'll find useful when you're making incident maps. Templates, I'll be using the templates and the styles today. And then we also have in here in the documents a copy of the GSTOP document. So that's what the template incident folder is. And then we'll go into the demo now. For those of you who were on yesterday's webinar, I wanted to start from the point where we left off yesterday, just so that you could see that flow. Those of you who were not in yesterday's webinar, basically yesterday we just created a generic map document and loaded the base data that we might want for this particular incident into that document. So I'm going to start first by just removing some of the layers. Actually, I'm going to start first by saving this and renaming it. And I'm going to put this in, just make sure I'm in the right, okay. And I'm going to put this in, this is the demo, the name of this incident. And I'm going to put this in the projects folder. And I'm going to use the naming convention that's in GStop. And so that would be the map type. And in this case, again, we're making an IAP. Page size, and this is 8 by 11. Page orientation. The year of the incident, 2013, incident name, and the NWCG unit ID and local incident ID. Okay, we'll save that. Okay, and now I'll start just removing some of these layers that I'm not going to use. And again, I'm only going to leave the 24K layer because that's really all that's required. And this is a quick map, so keep this simple. Let it draw. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and add the GPS data that I have, which consists of a shapefile for points and a shapefile that contains the perimeter of the fire. Go ahead and add those. Okay, and again, these are just initially going to be drawn with sort of default symbology. Zoom in on this a little bit more. Okay, and now we want to make sure that we're going to use the NWCG symbology, and that symbology, of course, doesn't come standard with ArcMap. So I think add that symbology here by clicking Customize from the window, Style Manager, and again, this file is going to be located in the template project folder. Got it right there. There's 3 files in here. If you guys end up using this, you'll see that the 2012 and 2013 files only contain updates to the 2005 files, so the majority of the symbols are going to be in the 2005 file. So then you can see I've got this added here. And if you're not super familiar with what you've added, you might want to take a look at this while you still have this window open. All of the hollow folders are empty, but then the folders that appear in yellow have symbology in them, color schemes, fill symbols for polygons, line symbols for fire line, MAPs, things like that, and then marker symbols which would be applied to the points and your point features in your map. Okay, so that's just an easy way to quickly look at everything that you've added. So go ahead and close that. And we'll start by symbolizing the fire line. And you open this, all of your symbols will appear here. I'm going to go ahead and say that this entire fire perimeter is uncontrolled fire line. Symbolize that quickly. And then I want to look at, we have several points here, so I just want to see if there's any attribute data, see if I can symbolize those. And there is. And attribute data tells me what type of point each point is. And then the label name for each point. So we can symbolize those by type. And go ahead and, so to do that, we're going to open the properties, feature class, and then go to the symbology tab. And again, we're going to symbolize these by category or by the type of point. So we get to choose the value field, and the field type is the one that contains the field that we want to categorize by. And I'll add all values. And I'm going to go ahead and uncheck this all other values because we don't have anything there. And you'll see there is, it looks like a typo here. I might just, you could edit that if you wanted to. I might just remove that one just for the sake of keeping this demonstration simple. So So here now we've got each type of point, and we just double click on the symbol to find the symbology for that particular type of point, and hit OK. Hello spot. If you're not seeing, if you're having a hard time finding the symbology you're looking for here, you can also type, you can see it there, but you can also type something in up here and search for it. And now that. And then camp. Sure if there's one specifically for Spike Camp, so I'll use the camp symbol. And then hit OK. And wait for it to redraw, and then we see our symbols appear on the map. Again, we talked a little bit about if there's a high likelihood that this map's going to be eventually printed in black and white. And as you can see, the symbols for the draw points and the hollow spot appear the same and would look identical if they were printed in black and white. So we do want to put some labels here on these points. So to do that, you can real quickly just hit Label Features, and it'll label all of them the same way, if that's something you want to do. Otherwise, if you want to edit your labels at all, you can go into the Properties tab again and click Labels. And then again, because we clicked that earlier, it's already turned on Label Features in this layer. The label field that it's pulling the label from is the field label. And if we wanted to make the labels just a little bit bigger, we could do that. We could make them bold if we wanted to, change the symbology here. So just leave it at that for now. Okay. And then of course we've got this one label here for that point that I didn't symbolize. We'll just see. We'll move that here in a minute. So now we've got our symbology added to the map, and we're using the NWC symbology. So we're going to go ahead and switch to, we've got all the data that we want to include in the map added and symbolized. So we're going to go ahead and switch to the layout view. So go here to the view, layout view. Okay. And then we're going to begin to see what our maps will look like. And now at this point, we don't have any of the standard required map elements on our map. And the great thing about a template is it allows us to quickly, those elements will all be built in ahead of time. So I'm going to show you how we'll add the template. So when you switch to layout view, you have a new toolbar here, and this is the layout toolbar, and it allows you to do things like zoom in or zoom out on the map rather than the data, pan around the map, zoom to the full extent of the map, which we're looking at now, or zoom 100% and on the map, or zoom in and out on the center of the map layout. And then these icons here, we're going to use the one in the middle, which is the change layout. Click that, and we'll navigate again. We're going back to the incident folder, template, or the active incident folder. And in the tools folder, there's a folder for templates. And we're making an IAP, an 8x11. And we will, the portrait, so we'll go with the regular legend. Hit open. And this is really asking if you have more than one data frame. We only have one, so we're not going to worry about this right now. We'll hit finish. And then you can see all the standard elements were applied to our map using the template. So really pretty easy, an easy way to add all those elements quickly. So you can see we've got the scale bar, the title. It's up here in the upper left. And it does include the incident name, number, datum, shift date, and shift. We've got our legend. Let's see what else. Our north arrow, and then the name and date that the map was prepared. Name of the person who prepared the map and the date that it was prepared. So what we want to do, of course, we've got all these elements here now, and we want to go ahead and edit these so that they reflect the incident that we're making the map for today. So to do that, you will need to use the select each one of these items individually, and then you can just type your information in over these. And I think okay, and then that information is updated. If you want to move any of these items around, again, you just click to highlight them, and then you can drag them into the position you want them in. We'll come back to the legend because that's a more complicated one. Okay, we'll go ahead and change the name and date. Okay, we've got our north arrow. Our scale bar has sort of an odd unit here. I like to have that be more of an even number, so you can just drag that, and it should adjust there. As you adjust the length, you can adjust the increments will adjust accordingly. Let's go back up to the legend now. Okay, so we need to clean this legend up a little bit. We have a couple things in here that we probably don't want in the legend. These bottom few items are related to the Mosaic data set that the 24K topo is in, so we'll remove those. We'll change the name associated with uncontrolled fireline to uncontrolled fireline, and then we may get rid of this name here. So we're going to do all of that at once. So I can select the legend by double-clicking on it. If I go to General, I get a dialog box that will allow me to specify legend items. I can select items I want to remove from the map, or from the legend, not the map. Okay, and then if we want to see what that looks like as we go, we can just move this over and hit Apply. Okay, see our legend got a lot smaller. The other thing I wanted to change here was the fact that this is showing the layer name and then the category. So we'll double-click on that layer here. And then that gives us the option to alter the legend item properties. So we're going to turn off the layer name and turn off that. The type is the heading. But we'll leave the labels, of course. Hit OK, and then hit Apply here, and you can see what that does. Okay, so that looks a lot cleaner. So we'll get out of here, and then to change, the last thing that we want to change the text associated with the uncontrolled fireline symbol, we can actually just change the name here in the table of contents for this layer. And we'll call it okay, and then it automatically updates. And then we'll just move this somewhere else so it's not floating in the middle here. Okay. One thing you want to do as you're making your maps is to, before you save them, for distribution, just take a really close look at all the items in your map and what you're looking for. Well, several things actually. Just look for anything that might be spelled wrong. Make sure that all the features are in the right location, and make sure that all of the required elements are actually on the map. Make sure that the area that you wanted to include in the map is included in the layout. And make sure the labels are good size that you think they'd be able to or be easily read. On that brings me back to this H4 we've got out here. There's a couple things I could do here. I could edit that attribute table to get rid of that spelling error, or I can remove this label. I think probably the easiest thing to do might be to just remove the label. And to do that, think about this for just a second. Convert these labels to annotation, which basically changes them to graphics in the map. And then they are selectable themselves, and they can be moved or added and deleted. Let's see. And there I've got the H4 is highlighted, and I can just hit delete and remove it. And obviously, if this were an incident, we wouldn't want to do that. We'd want to fix the spelling error in the attribute table, but I do want to keep the demonstration simple, so I'll do that just to make it look clean. Take one last look at it, and if we're satisfied with the way that the map looks, we'll go ahead and export it. We haven't saved it, so we'll save it and then export it. And when you export a map for an incident, you're going to want to, we're going to export this map as a PDF. You're going to want to go into the Advanced tabs and make sure that your Export Map Georeference Information box is checked. And then go ahead and save the map. And this map, because it is a product, map product from the incident, we'll go ahead and save it in here. And see, I can't remember. And then we can go into our project folder, or incident folder, and open that up and take a look at it. Okay, and that looks pretty good for a quick map. Let's go back to the slideshow. Okay, and that is really the end of the presentation, and that's all that I have. If you have any questions, please use the chat box on your screen to ask them. I did want to point out that if you're new to GIS and you feel like the demo moved a little too quickly for you to catch all the details, there are slides in the PowerPoint that are provided in the webinar materials, and they cover all of the steps in the demo if you need something to refer to in the future. I guess that's all that I have.
Alrighty. I replied some of those to all so that everybody could get a chance to listen. And are there any other questions out there? Okay, I got a hand raised. Let's see. Can you type your question into the question box? That'll speed that. I'm not quite sure how to answer the hand raised. Oh, there we go. Where can we get the webinar materials? Are you hearing me, Sarah?
I am, yeah. Okay,
good. Where are the webinar materials, and can we get a copy of the previous sessions? Yes. The webinar materials are posted on the link that you used to register for the webinar. If you don't have that, drop me an email and I'll send you a line. I'll send you the link. And we are going to be posting all of the recordings of these webinars. There's 4 of them. Recordings and the materials and all that kind of stuff in one place. We don't have that place identified yet, but we're working on that, and I'll get something posted up and notified out to everybody who attended the webinars next week. So coming soon. All right. And some of the other questions were, there was a good question about background colors in the topographic maps. Typically, when we're building IAP maps on an incident, we'll turn that background color off, or that green plate on those IAP maps for the topos. In this case, we didn't do that because we were focusing on kind of making the map really quickly. And we're using a data set off of those external hard drives that we've been talking about. That's national extent, but it's not a geo tip. We don't have it quite perfect, but we showed some shortcut steps. Let's see. All right. Any other questions coming in? Sarah, anything else to add, or?
I don't think so. That's all that I had.
Okay. All righty. Like I said, these will be posted, and then I'll get that information out to everybody who attended the webinars or signed up for the webinars. And we will go for that. Let me know if you have any feedback on this webinar series. You know, we kind of designed this as a real short turnaround kind of in-house thing for getting people ready before fire season. We'll elaborate a little bit more on it probably for next year and make it a little bit nicer. But if you've got any feedback for us, or materials we cover, anything like that, or things we didn't cover, or maybe some suggestions for other modules in this webinar series, please let me know, and I'd be happy to add those in the future. So thank you, everybody, for attending, and have a good day. Take care.